Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Today we're going to be looking at...
Hey, it's not your show. It's time to move on.
What do you mean it's not my show?
You had your time.
I've been doing it for a whole week. 10 videos, man. I think it's pretty much my show now. You guys agree, right?
No, look, you had your chance. Spooky week's over. Halloween's
whatever.
over.
It's not worth it.
It's time to move on,
care.
Emo Bryan.
Never
All right,
cared about it anyways. Just remember, I'm the real you, sheep. And I'll be back. Alright, now that that's taken care of and he's not trying to take over the show, let's move on. We're moving out of Spooky Week into a retrospective anniversary kind of thing going on. Saturday, November 6th, will be 2 years down for the channel. On November 6th of 2019, we checked out Selena Gomez's Lose You to Love Me song. It was the first reaction on the channel. And I want to celebrate a little bit looking back at some of the earlier stuff that we checked out that I just didn't have the expertise or the language or the experience to react to. I don't want to say properly. I mean, it was a reaction. It was my gut, what my gut was saying, what I was thinking, what I was hearing at the time. But I've developed a bit of an understanding of some of this music. And I want to go back and check out some of the stuff that maybe I didn't get or was too harsh for me at the time and see what I think of it now. Today we're going to be checking out Cult of Luna's In Awe Of. I know I was a little harsh on this when the first time we checked it out because, one, I wasn't exactly ready for this super heavy post-rock, post-metal stuff, but also because my only experience with Cult of Luna was with Julie Christmas at the head, doing the vocals, and I was not ready for the abrasiveness of Cult of Luna without Julie Christmas. So I think I was a little overly harsh because I was expecting one thing and got something very different. So we're going to dive into this and see if maybe I have a different reaction now that I have a better expectation of what I have, in front of me, and some more experience with this style of music. All right, let's go. I really like that left hand guitar that's providing a little bit of treble against all this heavy bassiness in the vocals and the rest of the guitars, the drums. So we're in 7. That threw me off. Especially since I'm not sure what comes first. It feels like we're doing the 3 and then the 4 pulse, which is interesting. Usually you tend to hear the longer section first and then a cut off second bar. interesting ambient tones here, really creating a specific atmosphere. We have this bass kick just laying down every single downbeat, even though we have this irregular 4/3, not 4 bar and then 3 bar. The 7 goes irregular there. Bass kick is still just laying it down, really letting the section evolve and allowing the listener to let the song envelop them in this singular idea. I really like that panning ambient tone. Time has gotten real interesting. And I like how they've taken this singular riff and have expanded it from 4 to 7 to whatever we're in right now. Yeah, really hitting a groove here, bringing it back to 4 and allowing the song to really meld into this vibe instead of trying to feel a little awkward about it. Yeah, really nice contrast here between lower end and higher end ideas. We just widened this out a ton and made it even crunchier. This section got real heavy. Very cool things going on in the drum and that fill there. Playing around with intensity, volume, and accent. I think it was just standard eighth notes, but the way they were accenting different things was really cool. And they always have these little like synth tones going on. that help fill out some of the space in the song that isn't necessarily being worked on within the core instruments of the rock band setup. Bringing the intro back. Yeah, introducing a little bit of spice to the rhythmic ideas to really play against a lot of the droning elements we had seen previously. I love those snare hits that are used throughout this entire song. I don't remember if those snares were utilized during the 7 section, but definitely in the time signature where I couldn't feel it. A lot of it was because of these odd pockets of snare hits. Yeah, everything's coming together right here. It's not even just a nice contrast of range. It feels like so many areas of musical range were covered there from top to bottom. We had several treble stuff going on. We had some stuff in the middle. We had some bass stuff. It was just a full wall of sound there to finish off this track. Yeah, so that is interesting. Very interesting. Because the ideas that I have of this song were not what I heard. And I've talked about in the past about a song bouncing off of you, and maybe you're just not in the right mindset for it. Maybe you have the wrong expectations, or it could just be that you're not ready for the song, and maybe in a few years you're in the right mood for it, or you have, whatever to appreciate it more so than you did the first time. I've made this point several times, especially with songs that have bounced off of me. I've always made the caveat that maybe if I came back to them in the future, I'd enjoy them more. This is exactly what I'm talking about. In my mind, I had this filed away, and I believe if you go back and watch my original reaction video, one of my biggest criticisms on it was its staticness. That it was a super drony song that didn't really go anywhere, and it just sort of sat in this singular pocket, which of course was based off of my introduction to them, the Shipwreck of SS Needle. I think that was the name of the song I listened to, with Julie Christmas doing vocals on it. It had these elements of post, of course, because that's still who Cult of Luna is, sort of, that I'm kind of getting from the few songs I've heard from them. It had those post drony ideas, but it was more of like a prog post, which maybe that doesn't make any sense, but it seemed to have more evolution in the musical lines. It could just be that Julie's melodies in some of her clean singing sections brought some ideas to their heaviness that I enjoyed or whatever, but this just was not what I was expecting given my what I had heard previously. Now, having listened to more Cult of Luna, more post rock, more post metal, more drone in general, we've checked out quite a few songs that have not really moved in ways that I've really enjoy. And I've kind of listened to a lot of these songs and analyzed them from a point of appreciation for what they are, not an appreciation because I enjoyed listening to them. But I'm hearing this in completely different light. And something else that might have changed as well is my headphones. I am 90% certain when I checked this one out, I was wearing a pair of gaming headphones. Uh, um, and a song like this that is working with textures and width and layering on this level is just not going to sound the same, which is duh, Bryan. Seriously? Yeah, I mean, I know no song's going to sound the same between gaming headphones and, music headphones. I get it. But I think this one in particular just really needs the extra fidelity to appreciate. So there's a lot of factors that are coming into play here. But I do think it's interesting just how different I feel about this. Like I said, my original reaction was that this was dull and sat in the same place and was too static. It was too drony. And I'm not feeling that today. I'm not. It's a slower moving song, that's for sure. I'm not going to compare this to a Dream Theater song or, an Animals as a Leader song or something that's constantly moving through ideas. Lots of complexity in the song composition and structure. This is a simple song as far as structure goes compared to proggy stuff, but this is nowhere near as drony and one note as I remember, filing it away in my brain. We have a lot of really cool things going on here, and a lot of it has to deal with nuance. So let's get into some of this. First, I do really want to point out the contrast. I think they do a fantastic job of balancing their bass and their lower end guitar work with their synth or higher range guitar melodies, or I think that's it. I think you can maybe classify some of the cymbals as having a higher pitch. They're brighter at least. But they seem to be utilized less often, at least in a spotlighting kind of way to offset the lower end work. It really is up to the synth and the guitar to provide some of the higher end stuff. And I think it does a good job throughout of doing that. I mentioned it right off the bat. I think it was one of the first things I noticed was a lot of this song is just weighted to that bottom end. It really roots and grounds the song, but there's always something in the higher register kind of floating above all of it and providing some nice contrast to this weight. I think without it, the song would have felt, well, dull because it really usually provides the only melody in sections, but also it wouldn't have as much levity. It'd be too heavy, and it would be a completely different idea. We've listened to songs that just are, oppressive, just really pushing down on the listener. And I don't think that that's what they're going for here, especially with the name In Awe Of, which I'm going to touch on later because I think that's really cool. And I can't believe I missed it last time. We got to dig into that. But yeah, so I think it provides this nice levity to everything. There's definitely weight, but there's grace to the weight. And I think that's awesome. Um, so yeah, the contrasting ideas. I want to mention that final eighth note thing where all the band is hitting on all these, the same beat all the time, hitting these eighth notes. And I mentioned it. It's like this wall of sound, but also of range. Rather than just having the low end and the high end, I can hear, a gamut of notes, and it's providing this full wall of range. And I think that is amazing to end the song on. Counting out that crackling, distorted drone that probably leads us into the next song. I see that as a lead in rather than the outro of this song. So yeah, just to finish the song on those, it's just yes, 100%. Um, so yeah, some nuance. First of all, meter. The time signature is all over the place. We have a 4/4, and then we cut off one of those beats every other bar to give us a 7/4. And like I mentioned, it's interesting with the 7/4 because the way that they have the pulse set up is it feels like we have the shorter bit first, which to me is a very five thing to do. When you do 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3, and it provides this sort of early rush and then a drag towards the end of the bar. Seven, at least in rock and metal, a lot of the stuff we've checked out that has entered a seven feel tends to feel like it has a note pulled off at the end of a passage. So what that typically works out to is a four and then a three. It feels like, the first bar is in 4/4. It feels like we're still in the familiar time signature. And then the second bar is going to be in 3/4. And it feels like we move to the next bar just a hair early. It feels like we're tripping. That's usually what I'm used to. You're going to get a bar that feels like it should have been 8, and it ends up feeling, it ends up being 7. It feels like it's being cut short. Instead, we get a 3/4, which gives the hiccup in the middle of the phrase, which is a very interesting idea, at least to me. Because it doesn't feel so much that we have the hiccup there. It feels like our second bar is too long. It's sticking around for longer than it should. And I like that feeling on a novelty level because, like I said, at least to me, it's so rare. Usually, when we use 7, we use it as a subtractive of 8, not an addition of 6. Instead of feeling like a shorter 8, this one feels like a longer 6. It feels like it should have been in 6. And we're just hanging on to that last beat for, why are we hanging on to this? Let's move on. That kind of feeling of dragging rather than rushing. And it's, like I said, just a bit of novelty. I'm not sure if it factors into the song. Maybe it has something to do with the lyrics. As usual, growls, I don't pick up lyrics on growls very easily. I was actually surprised I picked up a couple of sentences on Lorna Shore last week, but I did not get anything here. And I think part of that is also just that post-rock wall of sound idea. The vocals are mixed way more into the band than on Lorna Shore, which I don't think I mentioned. And I wish I kind of had because the vocals are very clear and pronounced in Lorna Shore, and that probably helped with some of that syllabic clarity. Um, but yeah, I am kind of curious if this idea of dragging and feeling longer than it should, really sticking around longer than perceived should be, is part of any lyrical ideas, or if it's just something cool they thought up and wanted to throw it in. Because, like I said, it's a bit unusual. There's some novelty to that, and I love it. Then the next meter was something I don't know. They shifted to a 3 pulse, right? We weren't in 4 anymore. There was more of a triplet feel going on, and I wasn't quite sure if that means we had shifted to something like a 6/8, or if we were still working in something over 4, and we were just shifted to triplet ideas. Actually having triplets in the notation. But regardless, I had a real tough time finding pattern lengths. And without that, I really had no sort of landmarks to figure out, how many beats were in an idea so that I could divide that into how many beats per bar, how many bars this idea takes up, and go from there to figure it out. It was strange. I caught pockets of 10, and it really made me think maybe we were in a 5/4 with triplets idea, or maybe a 5/8 with emphasis on every third beat. But with 5, it doesn't divide easily. We've got 3s and 2s, and maybe that's what was throwing me off. Is it felt like 6/8, but we had an irregular type of 6/8. So I That is a section I would love to go back to and just really focus on and forget about everything else, because that's something I don't have a luxury doing with these reactions. If the time signature calls to me and I'm like, oh, we changed, let me see what we're in, and I can't pick it up in 10, 15 seconds, give me, 16 bars or so, 20 bars to try to figure it out. I have to move on. I have to say, I don't know the answer to this one and skip it. Just like on some sort of standardized testing or any test, actually, there's a time limit. I have to I have to listen to everything else that's going on in a section because the song's going to move on whether I figured stuff out or not. And sometimes I just have to accept I'm not getting it, and that happened there. But yeah, that I would love to go back and just hone in, forget about everything else, just pay attention to the drums, guitar, anything that's providing rhythmic elements, and just hone in on it and say, what's going on here? Maybe even get some pen and paper out. Um, Another thing that was interesting though, and I mentioned it at the end, was these pockets of snare hits. And it would be like three of them, and if we're in eight, it would all be downbeats. If we're in four, we have eighth notes. So it'd be a downbeat, an offbeat, and then the next downbeat. And I wonder if they weren't, ooh, if they have anything to do with the changing of bars, because some of them seem to be rather close together, and I couldn't figure that one out because usually when you accent stuff, you're going to put some space between them. And there really wasn't much space between some of these. But I wonder if, going back to this five idea, we were using it as three and one for our three pocket. And if we're in five, our next one's going to be two. So then we're going to need two and one. And they're going to be real close together. You get ba ba ba, ba boo ba, right next to each other. Um, and yeah, oh man, I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know how close that is because I don't remember the exact sound of the section. I just remember hearing these pockets of three snare hits real close together, and I don't know if they were only a beat apart or if maybe there was two or three beats apart, which would kind of blow this idea out of the water. But yeah, were they pickup signifiers for the downbeat, beat one of a bar? Whew, yeah, I got that's like I said, go back and I gotta listen to that section and try to figure that one out. Um, so we have the time signature changing. We move into a four after that. Basically, it seems anytime we have vocals, we're in four, and in some of the more instrumental sections, we shift to all sorts of crazy stuff. Um, and I mean that's kind of typical. I do enjoy it with when they create melody lines around odd meters, but I completely understand that it's easier to create groove and atmosphere than melody lines that don't feel weird. It's very easy to work within an odd time signature and write a melody that feels disjointed because maybe you write it for something more standardized and you just take a note off or you duplicate a note at the end and it doesn't quite feel like the melody was designed for the time signature. It feels like it was adapted from a standardized one to fit this. And I'm guilty of that. I'm not gonna lie. Um, there's a lot of prog music that does it that way, and it helps to emphasize if you're taking a note off and you want it to feel like you're tripping, creating an 8 bar rhythm or sorry an 8 beat rhythm and taking a half of a beat away from it helps accent that lack of that rhythmic tripping because even though not a lot of people are educated in music theory, it's still something you can feel. You can feel when it feels, you can feel when a melody feels unnatural or when it feels like it's missing something. You might not know why. You might not be able to put it into words, but it feels like there should be more and there wasn't. I think most humans are kind of attuned into that, even if they don't have the vocabulary to express what's going on. Um, and a lot of bands I think dig into that. They know that it works. So yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily want that style of melody. I think I would want a melody that flows properly in the time signatures they're working with. But like I said, I understand that's easier said than done, especially in that second time signature shift that I don't even know what signature it was. Uh, it could be it could be difficult writing a melody in that, especially when you want to emphasize the atmosphere of it and really get the listener to sort of zone out and get enveloped by the sound you're creating. The melody can also be distracting from it. Um, so yeah, we have contrasting ideas in range. We have contrasting ideas in meter. We have contrasting ideas in texture. This one caught me off guard, and I think this is I'm going to attribute this one more to hardware, my headphones, rather than just me becoming more understanding of what's going on in these genres. There are a lot of bits of nuance, especially done in the synth work, that helps the song feel like it's never stagnating. The song feels like it's in a constant frame of evolution. Even if the guitars and drums are kind of laying down more of a drony atmosphere where most bands would stop there, we have a keyboardist, I think, doing some synth work to help aid in atmospheric ideas, widening out the track, providing little bits of treble range elements for the ear to kind of hone in on, while the rock band setup is really holding down that lower end, really grounding the song. There's little sound effects. There's like this repeating warble thing that was panning from left to right. Just all sorts of interesting things that help the song feel non-static, animated, I suppose might be a way to go about that in a visual frame. And because of all of these contrasting elements, it never felt to me like the song was static or drony. I think the one time I was like, oh, I can't believe the song's not over yet. I think it was like at the 8 minute mark, maybe. We were close to the end already. And all I remember from the first reaction was thinking that the song was just taking forever. That they were sitting in these ideas for minutes at a time with no evolution, and why aren't they moving on? And this one, I didn't get that feeling at all. And I still am not a fan of droning music. I think that's pretty evident, even up to, last week's Sun track was really pushing my limits as far as listenability. But I think that's also an extreme case. I'm trying to think of a recent example of some drone, but no, nothing's really coming to mind. It's still not my favorite kind of music, though. I prefer to have movement and direction rather than sitting within a soundscape, which I totally appreciate. I'm not saying that's the wrong way to make music. I'm not saying if you like that, you're listening to music wrong. Everybody listens to music for their own reason. It's just usually not why I would listen to music. And like I said, I don't get that here. There's definitely moments where the rock band, the drums, the guitar, the vocalist, you actually usually not the vocalist, the drums, the guitar, the bass, they're really working within that droning idea. But there's other things going on, little nuanced ideas, textural ideas, melodic ideas that help the song feel like it's always moving in a forward direction. And I'm glad I got the chance to come back to this and check that out again and really feel that. And it's not like this is a second listen back to back. It's not like I listened to this yesterday. A lot of this song is not very familiar to me. I kind of have these ideas, but I don't remember any specific, melodic phrase or guitar riff or anything like that. This was at least a year and a half ago that I listened to this. It is it is quite out of my memory by now. And yet I feel like I've heard new things, which is just phenomenal. So, like I said, I'm glad I got the chance to come back to this one and give it another listen, especially with proper hardware. It makes me wonder. I do not have the cash for this, but it makes me wonder how much more I could hear with a $700 or $1,000 pair of headphones, or maybe even something more expensive. I'm not an audio guy. I'm a music person. I'm about that sheet music. I don't know if audio interfaces have anything to do with it. Would a $500 audio interface also affect the sound? In theory, I think yes, but how much? I'm curious how much more I could hear with expensive equipment, or not necessarily expensive. I don't want to equate price with quality, but quality, high fidelity equipment. I'm curious how much more I would hear, especially in stuff like this that is highly textural and focuses a lot on production. And I don't want to downplay that. There is a lot of work here going on with the synthesizer and the guitars and the drums and the vocalist. There's still that performance aspect. Um, but there's also a lot going on into production. The width of the sound, the crunch of these sounds, the extra distortion there in the second half, that the band felt like it was overly compressed. Um, so there's a lot of production stuff going on here as well. And I wonder how much of that I'm missing by having headphones with a smaller sound stage, or not as much, bass presence, or whatever a more higher quality headphones would be able to produce all that. Very interesting. I do want to touch on the title real quick before we head out. This is a rather lengthy video. In Awe of. I have used the word awesome a few times in the past, and usually with the caveat I say this was awesome in the original sense of the word. It inspires awe listening to it. It is not the 90s, that's awesome, man, where it's sort of just an analogous word for cool or great, or I really enjoyed it. No, to really be in awe of, to listen to it and think, wow, I've never heard anything like this. This is blowing my mind. I am in the presence of something great or new or revolutionary or innovative. Just to be in that state of awe, to just that slack jaw, what am I listening to kind of idea. And I think this song does a great job of capturing that on several levels. First of all, I mentioned that this song has a lot of gravity to it. A lot of the song is really tuned to that lower end work. It provides this gravity, this weight. It is a song that imposes the idea that there is something not to be trifled with. And I want this to stand in opposition to other tracks we've listened to that really emphasize this weight and lower end idea, but do so in an oppressive manner. The songs tend to feel combative in their weight, like they're pushing the listener down. This utilizes some of those same elements of weight, but does so in a manner not to oppress, but to anchor. It keeps the song grounded and allows these melodic ideas and these synthesizer tones and whatever else is going on in the treble to have this width and power to them. It cuts through. And this combination of levity with the gravity creates this idea that to me seems otherworldly. It is like looking at something. It is kind of the sound I expect when I see or hear something that blows my mind. Especially that final section there at the end. I told you it's the wall of range. We have so many tones here. It is not just a high end and a low end. We have this nice range all coming down on the same beats, really creating this force of presence. Again, it is not oppressive. It is heavy. That is for sure. It is sharp and calculated with all of these notes hitting at the same time in a very wide way. but it is not oppressive in its weight. It's awesome. And I think they do a pretty good job of creating this sound while avoiding the stereotypes of angelic choirs or trumpets or anything that sort of is the trope for awe. When you taste that gorgeous chocolate and it's like, oh. They're avoiding those tropes and trying to find a way to encompass this idea of the awesome in post rock, in a rock setup without going towards any of the tropes. And I think they pulled it off. I'm not sure it's going to be as universal as an angelic choir striking, a gorgeous chord. I think everybody hears that and they think, wow, that's the best thing that could ever happen. Um, that's sort of a universal idea, but I think they did a good job, at least as far as my ears go, of doing this. Like I said, I don't think it's going to hit everybody. I don't think it's as universal as an idea of awe, but I think they did a good job of capturing it given the limitations that they've put on themselves to do so. All right, I think that wraps this one up. I think that is a good start to the week. I kind of grazed through. That's not the word I want. I kind of parsed through my original reaction to this just to kind of see what my notes were, kind of see where I was at, because I do want these to be retrospective, reactive. I don't want it to just be a new listen. I want to make sure that I am either agreeing with or contrasting with what I did. That's the whole point of the week, is to look back on the past and see where we're at now while also keeping eyes on the future. I don't know why I'm talking like this. And if I'm not looking back at my old videos, I'm ignoring a third of that. So, I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, I think this is a good start to the week. I addressed some of the stuff that I had issues with previously. I agreed with some of the stuff that I said previously, and I think that I am working as an example of showing what it means to reevaluate a track on a future listen. Like I said at the beginning, I often tell people that when things bounce off of me, there's a chance I could come back and enjoy them. There's also a chance I won't. And maybe there's going to be a few songs this week where I'm like, yeah, everything I said previously, I'm still down on. That could happen. And maybe the song's just not for me, or maybe I need more time or, different headspace, whatever. But I think this is a perfect example of what I mean by that. That a song is not bad and a song is not something you dislike as some sort of permanent, absolute idea. I can dislike a song at some point in time. That doesn't mean I dislike it in the future. All right. Those are my thoughts on Cult of Luna's In Awe Of. That's where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed that one, if you didn't. If there's anything you want to add, any sort of comments, go ahead and let me know. I'm pretty sure there's quite a bit of context in the original video. But like I said, this is like a year and a half ago. So if you have any extra context to the song that you want to add, go for it. There's all sorts of new information coming out all the time. Maybe there's a new interview with them and they drop some new information about why they made it or how they made it. I don't know, man. Whatever you want to talk to me about regarding this band, this song, go ahead and drop that comment. Above the comment section, there's a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Fantastic little menu. It'll take you to everything related to the channel. You can support me through Patreon, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, email me, whatever you want to do. All those links are in there, and more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We got one more video that's came out 15 minutes ago. This was a lengthy one. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. We'll be looking at more retrospective stuff and some more special selections. All right, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos. And it looks like Emo Bryan got one up on me. Appears he changed the ocean back to orange after I did green. That'll be fixed for tomorrow. Just had to make sure his thumb touched one last thing before leaving, I guess.